Do not settle for a life that does not belong to you. Uncover and activate your fullest potential in this lifetime. Live your greatest life experience.
This is the Full Potential Living Podcast with Coach Alex Surdu.
Hello and welcome to the Full Potential Living Podcast, where we believe your greatest life experience is not only possible, it's probable once you make the decision to never settle for less. I'm Eric Ferguson, your host, and here we explore real strategies in health, spirituality, business, and personal development so that you can create a life you truly love. I want to help you love your life and who you are. Get ready to break free from mediocrity, evolve with every challenge, and embrace a future where you are living your unique full potential life. Today, we have a very special guest and good friend, Alex Surdu. Alex Surdu is a lifelong learner who describes himself as a teacher who gets paid to learn. Love that. Alex started his journey in education as a teacher, then moved into training and now designs learning experiences for large audiences in the personal development space. He's worked closely with multiple New York Times best-selling authors, and the courses he's helped create have reached over 6 million students worldwide. Alex, it's a pleasure to have you on, man, and gain some wisdom, talk some knowledge to help people move forward in their life today. So how are you doing, man?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation, my friend.
Yes.
Looking forward to the conversation. I am doing good. It's the middle of the day for me, so I'm pumped. I'm ready to answer any and all questions you might have.
Awesome. So tell us, I like to always just lay the foundation of the conversation, but tell us a little bit about your background that most people, maybe even in the communities that you've built, tell us something they don't know about who you are.
Okay, so many might not know in the communities that have helped build is that I grew up in a small village in Romania. That village was my entire universe. I actually had this idea that I actually understood reality as it is and my place in it from the perspective of that limited box that I lived in. I had the good fortune and privilege to study abroad when I started university, and from the first moment when I got introduced to other cultures, other ways of thinking, I was like, man, I don't understand anything from this thing we call life. Everything that I thought I had figured out till that point, it was like it just went out the window. And then that moment when I felt stupid in a way, I was like, man, there's so much that I don't know, marked also the beginning of my journey to start traveling and understanding different people, different cultures, different perspectives. Learning has always been my tool for that, and intrinsic curiosity more than anything. I have always approached subjects with this idea of trying to understand what the subject is and not place judgment upon it until I fully grasp all of the principles. So that curiosity and breaking out of that small box led years later to many of the elements that you already mentioned in that description of working with people, New York Times bestselling authors, creating a lot of courses in the personal development space. I was struggling actually to think if I haven't touched a element of the personal development space in the process of creating courses. And at the end of that journey, let's say not at the end, where I am now, it's such a different universe, perceptually, idea-wise, and also in reality that I live now. The difference between the man that's talking to you now and that little boy in the village, it's astronomical. I cannot, I would have never been able to fathom it.
Wow. How does that make you feel about how far you've come in your life? Like reflecting back on that so long ago, what would that version of yourself say? Like, what would that child say about who you are now?
There is a line that I wrote in my live vision just this past December that made me tear up just a little bit. I was editing my live vision. I'll be like, okay, let's get it clearer. And then I wrote this line that I have become the man I needed most in my darkest days.
Ooh.
And that moment when I wrote it down, I was like, because I had a lot of when I was struggling to break free from my confound, the confound of my box and stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't feel very good, and I actually didn't know how to do it. I just pushed forward. I tried to do whatever I could, like claw my way out, try to push forward through the existence. So I would have. I believe that at that time I didn't know the result that I would be, the life that I would be living today. But if I would tell my younger self something, it would like, kid, push through. You'll make it someday.
Wow. What was that? What was your childhood like at that time? Like being in that box? Do you describe what it was like at that point?
I mean, I didn't have a difficult childhood, let's say, per se. But for me, it was all about working from morning till night. So I was working in the fields. I was taking care of cows. I was working also in construction to make money so I can have when I went to school. It was a lot about a lot of physical work, where if we're talking also in the concept of productivity, let's say it's input and the output were closely matched. So working a lot, but generating very little, something like, because there was no concept of effectiveness. There was no concept of leverage. There was no concept of better ideas. That is all I knew at the time. Therefore, life seemed very difficult. Is you are not making enough momentum, let's say. That's what that's what I mean by the input and the output are closely correlated. What you want is to get the most output for the input that you put into a particular work or a task or business or something like that. So that was the fundamental problem. It's like this hamster wheel effect. It's like the more I run a lot, but I'm still not advancing. I'm still not going anywhere.
Yeah. So later on, what gave you the sense of momentum, kind of the sense of breaking free from that?
So you might be familiar with these 4 levels of competency. First, you are unconsciously incompetent. Put it bluntly, you're stupid, but you don't know that you're stupid. So for me, this from the 4 levels, right? Unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, and so on. The first level is the most difficult to break free from. The most difficult, because put it differently, is like, how do you know what you don't know? Because if you know what you don't know, you immediately have a path forward. But if you don't, you're stuck like that.
Right.
So for me, the first one was how I gave you that example with the traveling abroad and seeing other perspectives. It pointed out the glaring challenge that I actually did not understand reality as well as I thought I did before that.
Yes.
So I became consciously incompetent. And for me, that is like, it's a moment to rejoice.
Yeah.
I often tell also this story that I was not very good with technology or anything until I was, like I said, I was a teacher. I started teaching in various countries, but technology has never been something that I understood, or massive online courses or things of this nature. I just had pedagogical knowledge. I knew how to structure content, etc. When I joined Mind Valley, for example, and I started creating online courses for the first time, I still remember my first day in office. I went there and I was like, okay, let's create something. And my manager at the time, she was like, okay, so first of all, you need to understand that you put things in Google Drive, and then there is this other thing here with the cloud storage. And then I was like, whoa, let's stop for a very second. It's like, I know that I have an email address. That's all I know. What are you talking about? Because she was like, oh, you need to understand a little bit of advertising and online ads and this in order to link them and all that. So I have never felt so stupid. I felt in that moment. But the point is that I have always celebrated that initial feeling of inadequacy
Ooh.
or not being enough in a situation, because till that point, I was not aware. But now you have made me aware, and now I have a choice, for example. And the choice can be, do I want to learn these things and grow in this sphere? Or I'm like, I know that I don't know, but it's also not interesting to me, so let's discard them. But that initial moment of awareness, right, it's one of the most profound things for me.
Wow. I absolutely love that. For me personally, it feels like I've gone on like to a new level, like kind of entering a new chapter of my life, like being here in Austin for now a couple months. And I've definitely had very high level people around me. And I've had choices of like, what do I want to do now? Faced with, this so much growth, faced with that moment. I know what you're talking about, like faced with that moment where you realize like, wow, I don't know a lot. And I feel like I'm now so excited to be in those spaces. Whereas before, I felt like I was always sort of in a room where I was the most knowledgeable or the most skilled or maybe the most handsome, like whatever it was. I always felt like I was kind of like the top. And now I'm like putting myself in places where, wow, I'm actually like, I've got a lot to learn. And I'm, in a lot of areas becoming, consciously incompetent and going, wow. And I know exactly what you're saying. You have that choice to let your ego go, no, I just want to stay the same. For me, it's like, I could just stay the same. I could just pretend, like eventually I'll have to change most likely. But, I could either change now and really step into that person I want to be and let go of my ego, let go of defending or let go of any of that and just grow, or I'm going to have to do this, in the future anyway. And it's like, you have that ability. I've been coaching a lot of people lately where they're at the same point, where they're at this point where they're like, I either have to change now. I see my incompetencies and I either have to change now and grow, or I'm just going to keep suffering and keep going down this area or staying stagnant. And it seems to be such a big theme for people that I'm working with, but also in my own life. And it's so interesting.
So there is also a little bit of the distinction here. Like you come from the sports world. So in the sports world, if you want to be good, you actually lean into that edge consistently, as in like, what exactly am I doing wrong here? Because I lost the last race. You're in baseball, right? It's like, I keep striking out. I'm like, what am I doing? Show me what I'm doing wrong so I can improve.
Please.
In the civilian world, which is not this one, most of these showing somebody the inadequacy, it's met with resistance by default.
Yes.
In psychology, and we have in our culturescape a lot of sentences that actually indicate the same thing. Like in psychology, you have Carl Jung that said the fool is the precursor to the savior. What it means is that you need to accept your inadequacy so you can grow, so you can help others, right?
Yes.
In education, in the education field, we often say that it's not the learning that is the problem. So the learning to do something better or improve, right? It is the unlearning that tends to be the biggest problem. In the business world, in the business world or in life in general, I also like this phrase. It's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know but isn't so. So all of these things point out to the same thing. If you want to excel, grow, understand, you need to face the reality of your inadequacy in that particular area. And just to address it also from an emotional perspective, it has nothing to do with you as an individual. You need to understand that your self-worth is intact just because you are a living being. But when you are faced with a particular area of growth, be it sports, business, or whatever, you need to understand that skill matters. Doing things better matters. And if that is important for you, you cannot hide behind the shield of the ego that cannot accept anything that contradicts its value. You have intrinsic value. Start from there and accept that in the realm that you are operating, you might not know all the things. You might be more incompetent than needed to be. And that's a choice. Like I said, after that, once you understand this, I'm like, okay, what's the level that I want to reach? Because maybe, like, you'll notice in sports, it's like, I just want to play baseball well with my friends versus I want to be pro versus I want to be Babe Ruth or whoever is your idol and become like the absolute best. Like these are different levels that I come from the education space, right? So one of the questions that I ask when it comes to learning something fast, right, like rapid skill acquisition, would always be like, okay, what's the target level? Because to be good enough at something, which means to be better than 50% of the people, actually doesn't require that much effort or time.
Good enough.
Good
is
enough.
The definition. Better than 50% of people doing the same thing.
This is just a rough, I threw in the number like that, but the idea would be like, well, let's put it like this. Two people meet each other. You just want to be better than the other person that you're competing with, right? So to be good enough, actually the skill set and everything, it's not that hard to acquire. If you want to be in the top 20%, all of a sudden, it's not, you have to increase the span. So to be in the top 20% might take you, let's say, to be good enough, it might take you months. To be in the top 20%, it might take you 1 to 3 to 4 years. Depends where you started, depends what you already know, depends on what exactly is the field that you want. To become Babe Ruth, you might need 2 decades.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's the same principle is in any type of field. So when I talk about rapid skill acquisition, the word rapid, it's very relative. And it's always linked to what exactly is the level. Because if you want to be in top 1% or top 0.1%, there is no such thing as rapid. It's a journey.
So anything we're trying to learn and anything we're trying to become, we need to decide what is the target, what is the level that we want to achieve. And what do you feel like that clarity does for you to have that in your mind? Like, that's my target.
Oh, it acts as a decision-making framework, right? It also, because, let's put it like this, in the absence of a decision-making framework, everything that comes your way becomes important, becomes urgent, becomes like the most interesting thing now. But for example, if you want to be good enough, then it's simply a mastery of the fundamentals. So let's, I'm not very familiar with baseball since it's not practiced in my country, but I have knowledge of it. But technically, if you had to play baseball at a good enough level, you need to break it down to this in the sense of what are the non-reducible skills that I need. So without these, you cannot even talk about baseball, right? And let's say it's like posture and batting and something else, like let's say a few of them, right? So it's like, well, without the proper stance and the way to swing the bat and the way to assess the speed of the ball, there is we cannot talk about the skill.
Right.
So what it means is that I need to become good enough at these 3 things.
Right.
And that's all I practice.
Right.
Of course, to become the absolute best, it's, again, a master is always a master of the fundamentals, no matter what. Anybody that you will ever pick, a master is a master of the fundamentals, the master of the sports, the master of the thing, does not do the fundamental. They always do the fundamentals. But now they have also a lot of other smaller skills, like seeing the posture of the other person, seeing the wink in their eyes. They know how the curve when they throw the ball.
What pitch they're like, pulling out of their glove.
Exactly. So there are a lot more things, right? So this is what's called skill layering. So in order to become better and better, it's just a matter of layering more and more skills. And then the master is also somebody that most likely has seen an immense amount of variation in the practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I said, if you want to be rapid, it's relative. The basic of it is like, what are the non-reducible skills? By the way, this logic applies to all skill sets. What are the non-reducible skills that without these, I can not even talk about any form of competency doing what I'm trying to do.
Non-reducible skills. So looking at the primary skills that you need to really master and kind of separating yourself personally from it and going, my self-worth is not my skills, so that you don't take it personally, but then going, okay, these are the 3 skills I have to master. So that kind of brings that clarity of, so what are some of these timeless principles of productivity or of learning that really got you, or that got you started, but you feel like are really timeless principles of productivity?
So in productivity per se, one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn is that hard work with the wrong philosophy always leads to burnout. So hard work with the wrong philosophy does not lead to increased productivity per se. So a timeless principle for me here, by the way, I love the question of timeless principles. Just mention it.
I know.
I love to geek out over these because, like I said, these are the non-reducible things. And if you need to understand these first, and then you can layer on top of it any fad, any strategy you want. Actually, I'll digress a little bit just to mention something else that I've seen. Yeah. It is actually the lack of understanding of the fundamental principles that make people adopt the latest technique or fad as thinking that it is the absolute, the best thing. If you can actually drill down to the basics, by understanding the fundamentals, you can actually build whatever technique you want consistently. If you take an off-the-shelf technique, it's not like it's a bad thing. But normally, whoever creates the technique, whoever creates the step-by-step, that's how they figured out how this thing works for them. If you try to take it, most likely it will not work. And normally, because I've seen this in courses all the time, it's like, if you don't understand the basic, you'll always push back on the technique. And you'll always have a question, but this doesn't work for me in that area. But this, I tried this and it didn't work for me. So you always have a question back to the person. While if you start the other way around, you understand the basics, you see how this person constructed their framework, because it's impossible not to have constructed it on solid principles. It's just impossible. Understanding the principle, I'll be like, so they applied this mindset here, so I must keep the mindset and then tweak it to fit my characteristics. So that's just the idea.
Okay. What's the clear distinction there? Strategies and principles?
Yes. So principles build strategies. Strategies may uncover principles, as in they may showcase them, but it always starts with the non-reducible things. And like I said, one question that you can have, and maybe you that's why we also need people who are ahead of us in the journey, right? You can ask anybody when you're trying to uncover the path for a new skill. You can ask also that question. It's like, if you had to drill it down, everything that you do, what are the non-reducible things? And by this, I mean, without these 1, 3, 4, 5, you cannot even talk about the skill. I can talk to you about learning, but you asked about productivity. So I can give you like a couple of the principles that I consider to be absolutely fundamental. Yeah. And then you'll see how you can build from this. I'm not claiming that these are the absolute fundamental principles. I'm claiming that this is what I believe to be a non-reducible principle. And this is what I believe, this is what I use in order to build the strategy from that principle. Okay, so just wanted to make that clear. So the first one would be, there is always going to be the number one problem, it's always going to be a prioritization of resources when it comes to productivity.
Mm-hmm.
You are always going to deploy or use limited resources against unlimited goals. So you are always going to use limited resources against unlimited goals or aims. What does this mean? It means that we need to understand that we are biological creatures that have the ability to think, but this thinking is unlimited. We as biological creatures are limited. You know this from sports. I cannot bat for 2 days straight because I'll break my muscles and stuff. Yeah. But in your mind, you can bat for
ever.
Unlimited thing. Yeah. In business, is the same thing. Mentally, you'll think like, I can get to millions, 10 million, 20 million followers, whatever. It's like the mind sets these ever-growing goals, while you as a being, you're still subjected to limits, like the limit of biology. I cannot have more energy than this. I can build energy, but it always will have an upper limit. Any type of productivity has to start from this understanding that you are always going to deploy limited resources against a potentially unlimited goal, right? So, or this, we know very well this, that we, when we hit a goal, we don't celebrate. We just move the goalpost.
Create a new one.
Yes. So the constantly moving of the goalpost creates the same problem, because it's still me, the person. Yes, I grew in the pursuit of my goal. I became better. But if I constantly move the goalpost, I'm chasing something that always will break against my limitations. So for me, productivity, it always starts with a resource management situation. So that's like prioritizing resources. So that's number one. It will always boil down to this one at the beginning.
Resource management, prioritization. So that's number one.
Everything will boil down to this one. I think this is the main one at the beginning. And then once you understand this, let's say this is like the prerequisite of understanding, then I think that productivity starts when you stop being busy and start being effective. So you might have heard of this difference. I think most people are familiar with efficiency versus effectiveness, right? Efficiency is when you do something fast. Effectiveness is doing the right thing. So there's a big difference. So I think that many people, when they start down this productivity journey, all they want is to do more faster.
Yeah. Right.
Now, more and the instinct to do more is not bad, or the instinct to do more and fast also is not bad. But you will hit always against the first principle, which is you have limited resources. So in the pursuit of doing more and fast, you will lead to burnout because you don't have the proper prioritization. So what is the prioritization? You need to understand what you are doing and then see, okay, but what are the effective things here? Basically, the things that move the needle the most. So it's not how do I know, it's not how do I make things better and faster. It's what are the right things and how can I dedicate most of my time to those.
Yeah.
So for me, this is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. Hustle and grind is not a badge of honor. So hustle and grind is not a badge of honor.
Wow.
I've worked once, I remember, for an entire year. By this, I mean I worked 365 days out of 366.
Did you experience burnout?
No, but I was not far from it. The point of that story with working, I think I might have messed up the number. So almost every single day minus one of the year, right?
Wow.
So that is not with the mindset that I have now and the understanding now. Like I said, I became consciously incompetent. I realized the error of my way. I do not tell that story as a badge of honor of, look at me, I have worked every single day and it can be done. So the human body can work every single day and not break down. This we know as like too many people have done it. Too many people are in this grind, hustle. So it can be done, and probably you can do it for more than a year before the body breaks down.
Yeah.
But the question is like, was it effective?
Yeah.
And the answer came to me only like 2 years later, when I produced the exact same amount of money, but with half the work. And then another year later, I did the exact same thing by halving the work again.
Wow.
So the output, this is what I mentioned to you at the beginning, like the correlation between the input and the output, they actually, you have to break them. They don't have to be correlated. It's actually the opposite is correct. What's the minimum amount of input that gets me the maximum amount of output? So it's not, the question is not how do I work more hours? Because the answer is, well, just work more hours until you break down. Let's put it differently. It's not a fun game, if you think about it. The fun game is not how do I get to a point, which I personally have done at one point, which I worked several days, about 16-hour days in a row. Physically possible. Input versus output, stupid. Okay? So only when we get to this understanding that things can be done better, and a better, more fun game is how do I get the result? Let's say you had the result last year, whatever it is that you're saying.
Yeah.
Let's not all the time like let's double it or triple it or whatever. Always, you can also ask it differently. It's like, how can I get the same result, but with half the work? Because it doesn't scare you, gaining the same result. Normally people will have some emotional friction behind the let's 10x it. I'm like, dude, I almost killed myself in the process of 1xing it. What are you talking about here?
Yeah.
But a more fun game is like, because you see, you already achieved the outcome. So you can do it. It can be done. So that will not scare you. All you have to do now is like, can I get the same thing in half the time? And now we are talking about this concept of effectiveness. Because what it will make you do is, okay, this is the result that I got. Let's break it down and see all of the tasks that I have done. Right? You look at all of the tasks, and the question becomes, which are the tasks that actually led to this? They are strictly correlated with the outcome. So these tasks,
the non-reducible principles, essentially.
Also this, exactly. So which are these things that produce that outcome? And then the fun part begins, because you're like, okay, so I've done a lot of things. I threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall. So that is busyness. I do a lot of things, but am I doing the right things? And I don't think you can have an answer straight away. So I am not dismissing this. At the beginning, dude, throw the kitchen sink at the problem. Whatever you do, throw everything at it. Yeah. But then have after you get the result, you're like, okay, let's pause. What exactly from all of these 50 unrelated things generated the outcome? Once you figure that out, then the game becomes, okay, let's get rid of the rest, delete, delegate, whatever it is, and let's automate, and let's double down on the things that created this output. To tell it to you in a form of let's say of a formula. Okay. I by the way, I don't like formulas because they imply a deterministic result. So I know that people love them. That's why we add them in courses. Yeah. But me personally, I'm more of a fan of frameworks. So again, like what are the non-reducible principles when linked together, they create the result. And you need to figure out, based on the principle, what works for you. So the first, when it comes to, we have the outcome that we want. One of the components is indeed what we talked about, this volume, right? As in, sometimes you literally have to do work, as in like throw the quantity of actions. The quantity of actions. So basically doing more. This is true. You cannot have an output unless you do something. So the first one is this volume or actions that I take. But then, like I said, when you stop and think at the end of achieving what you wanted to achieve, you're trying to figure out the quality actions that led to the result. And that is basically the second component, or this idea of effective actions, right?
Right.
The
The quality.
quality, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have two major components of the outcome. You have the volume, so you need to do the reps. Now the quality, now you understand what are the right reps. So now you kind of tweak the volume. So you understand that instead of doing more, which will lead to burnout, I have to do more, but do more of the right things. That's the difference. That's the distinction.
I love it. I love it. So doing more of the things that actually move the needle and cutting out everything else that isn't moving your goals or your business or your life forward. So for somebody out there that might be feeling like I'm working so hard, you know, I'm starting my business or I'm running my business, I'm working so hard, but, you know, I feel like I'm not being as productive as I want to be. How would they start to implement this right away? How would they start to implement this strategy of let me cut things out and start to be more productive?
Yeah, so it boils down to the conversation that we had earlier. You need not deceive yourself. Like I said, busyness is not the badge of honor. You need to see like what is the outcome that I'm trying to reach. Then you already did, like within your example, this is what most people do. You already did a lot of work. So now don't let that go to waste. Pause.
Yeah.
And reflect, as in like, am I actually doing the right things here? Because look, what I've seen, instead of many people, instead of trying to get a product market fit, which means, is my product solving the actual need in the market?
Yeah.
Or am I spending my time trying to create clients? People normally geek out for 10 hours over their logo. They'll geek out over their brand colors, a lot of things.
Websites, social media. Yeah.
100%. And look, man, it's like the only way you can work with me in the personal development sphere is if somebody recommended me to you. I don't have a website. There is no online presence. You cannot get to me unless you know me personally, like you did, or somebody that I already worked with recommended me to someone else. I do not do paid outs. I do not do reach outs. I don't do anything like that. Why? By the way, this is not the method. Yeah, this is not the method, by the way.
Yeah.
This is my method of understanding the principles. Because what I saw is my best clients have always come from referrals. Undoubtedly come from referrals. And so then I'm like, okay, so if that's the thing that gets me the most thing, the best quality outcome, that all I have to do is focus on what's under my control, as in delivering such a great work for my current client, that this person falls in love with my work. So they sell me to somebody else.
Wow.
And here's an example. Because at one point, you know, if you start playing the effectiveness game and you know what brings, it feels like a game is rigged, man. So here's, if I have a conversation with a potential client that came via referral, my conversation starts directly with, how can I help you? It doesn't start with, I have a portfolio of 50, my content has created, my content has been seen by 6 million people. I never have, there's no selling pitch. There's literally nothing. I don't have to convince you. Because look, if I try to convince you, you'll always have something in the back of your head. It's like, is that really true? Is that is this guy full of hot air? Yada, yada, yada.
Right.
The selling of me already happened. It is my previous client who raved about me. 100%. And now I'm here and you're like, this is exactly how my conversation starts. I have a joke, I start a joke and it's like, okay, how may I help you? And then it starts from there. It's like, okay, so I'm trying to build this program and that's the conversation. And And the entire conversation becomes, can we actually work together? As in, like, do I have the skill set? Am I confident enough to deliver on? So am I the right fit for you?
Yeah.
But also, are you the right fit for me? So I
100%. Yeah.
I will, because I also saw which are the clients that I like, they have some characteristics. So I try to filter for that. Tie it back to our conversation. At the beginning, I also did a lot of spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
You wanted to work with me, I'll take on any project.
At the beginning.
At the beginning, anything, right? That created that type of ear that I said. A lot of work, a lot of wheel spinning, but not a lot of effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to create like a very long story about this, but I wanted to drive home the point that if you feel like you're not advancing enough, if you're close to burnout, don't let that go to waste, because you've already did a lot of work. All you need now is the humility to understand that you might have done a lot of the wrong things. Again, this is not something like to beat yourself up over. Like I said, you already have intrinsic self-worth. You just didn't know better. That's why you did that. So from that understanding, you're like, okay, I've done all of these things. Which were the ones that actually drove the needle?
Yeah.
Spend a day, a week, whatever you need. Pause, reflect, and extract those things. Let go of everything else and double down on those. So the volume, because now look, it's interesting because you already, if you are actually that type of person that hustled for a year or two and put in a lot of reps, you have developed the volume muscle.
Yes.
You just placed a lot of your finite resources, energy, time, etc., on everything. Okay, you put it everywhere. Now we uncovered which are the main ones. So we are going to put the same effort, but only on the best things. So you can have another year of hustling.
Wow, I see. Yep.
But only on the things that drove the needle for sure. But this, again, requires you to understand that you didn't make a mistake. You just didn't know better. You tried, you did everything, just extract the lessons. So that's the number one. That's for me like the
So yeah, what I really hear there is the ability to pause and reflect and stop the busy work, stop constantly moving forward, or stop constantly putting in work without taking a look at what's actually happening. So it's like pause and reflect, such a big part of it. Kind of get off the hamster wheel, of life, so to speak, and then pause and reflect for a minute. So that also kind of makes me interested, because I was on a podcast recently here in Austin, and we were talking about one of the guys that I was on the podcast with. He was like, I don't really believe. He's like, I'm not sure if I really believe in burnout. And people have these different perspectives of like what burnout is, what the definition is. We need to like define it first of all. But I felt like there's this idea of like you can do what you love every single day. And he felt like, yeah, like I could do this every day. I don't need a day off. And there's other people that are, okay, energy management, let's manage your energy so that you're taking this day off. Throughout your day, you're taking these breaks so that you can sustain this longer term energy. And he's kind of just talking about how he doesn't really ever need to take breaks. So what do you believe in terms of like, if you have this deep passion, that you're doing with your work, can you sustain this if you're really passionate, if you're, maybe you're doing the basic things to take care of yourself? Can you continue to do this for a long time and never stop? Or is this something like, it's just like a 10-year period that you might, because you do have a, limited resources, but what if it's your passion, and you're like, oh, I get lit up by this, it fills up my day. It's all I ever want to do. Because I think of like people like Alex Surdu as well. He talks so much about volume. He talks so much about like constantly doing more and working so much. It's all he ever wants to do. He'll like work every day. And then, maybe in the evenings he crashes, but somehow he keeps this going. And I'm like, how do you have that much volume, but not need to breathe, need to take a break? Is that because of the passion? What is your take on that?
So for me, I don't believe in passion. First of all, so, so, for me, like passion doesn't pay the bills. I've never resonated with the concept. I know
Something you're passionate about, maybe like a
No.
career you're passionate about.
So look, I think that if you really despise what you do, that's a drag, right? That's for sure. But the reality is that if you think about in terms of output, and if you link it to some sort of business goal like value creation or money, it's not passion that gets you there. It's doing the right things repeatedly over time, maybe applying leverage to it. So you hear a lot of like millionaires that they give you like follow your passion. I think it just became like one of these like statements, as in like let me be. I don't know what to tell you. It's like but a lot of them generated their money. Scott Galloway says this. You ask billionaires, they always say follow your passion, and most of them made their money in smelting or cleaning carpets. I'm like, like car washes and laundromats and a lot of things created a lot of millionaires in the U.S. Right? So I'm like, you are telling me that this person woke up in the morning and like, you know what my passion is? Washing carpets. No. Like their passion was like, hey, I need to, what is a problem that exists in this society and I can fix it better than anybody else. This is technically. And now there are also a lot of a very select few, I believe, of people that the thing that they are the best at in the world kind of coincides with something the society or the marketplace values. Buffett, for example, talks about this, tap dancing to work. As in like, I just like reading reports and allocating capital. Basically, that's what he does. Reads a lot of reports on business and allocates capital.
Yeah.
You ask me, horrendously boring thing.
Yeah.
Right? Just happens to like it, and it happens to be something that generates value. So in his case, if he's like, I just followed my passion, I'm like, yeah, I can see that working. So I think that follow your passion it's a very dangerous advice when you're starting out, because unless it happens to fit with an actual need in the market or the need that the market sees as valuable, you're bound to just burn out in the process, because it's not about the reps, it's not about the effectiveness, it's more about you are not even in the right vehicle. Nobody wants what you have. So that's on the passion side. So look, I'm passionate about learning.
Yeah.
But I'm not passionate about every single project that I worked on, because some are not interesting to me. They're not something I would have learned back then, or I want to learn. So if you force me to do it, I just hate it. Right? So you get to a point at one moment in time where you get to be more selective. So here we enter in something like, to go towards answering your question, I do think that there are a lot of activities that you can look at them from the lens of energy management. What I mean by this is like, does this generate energy for me?
Yes.
So you gave Hormozy as an example. Hormozy, he will say that he worked on a lot of things that he didn't enjoy. What he likes is talking about businesses. So you see, he did a lot of the work, and now he gets to a point where he's doing the thing that generates energy rather than taking it from you. So
right. Okay.
For me, for example, it's the same thing. If I have to talk about creating learning journeys, that's very energy filling for me. So the same, talking about ideas, very energy filling for me. So our conversation now, it's an energy filler.
Yes.
After this, after we end, I'll go there and I'll talk to my wife, and I'll be like, I had an amazing conversation. I'll be lit up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I have, for example, meetings where it's just about coming to a consensus over something that I consider to be absolutely useless. If it's 5 minutes, I cannot work for the next hour because it just drains everything from me.
Yeah.
So I see these type of activities also through the lens of energy. So you can ask yourself also. So first of all, we talked about defining the effective things, right? So we figured out the effective things, let's say. But even within those things, might be something like, this generates progress and it's linked to that. But man, it just sucks the soul out of me.
Yeah.
So then it becomes like a cool question of delegating, right? Can I find somebody that does this at a good enough level? So this is also Hormozy, right? He did the exact same thing. It's like he got to a point where he's just writing for 6 hours. I think he talks about this. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he talks about working in the morning on his books or ideas, and then he has meetings, a few meetings in the afternoon where he talks about business. So he got to a point where he does a lot of the things that he either picks, his choices, or things that generate the energy for him. So in this aspect, yes, because the answer to, I think the question is good in terms of if you want to be successful at what you do, it's also about extending the duration. So I have been in the personal development industry for about 11 years at this point. So the clients that come and everything are also an effect of me being in the game and not being burned out to get out of the game. So the longevity in the game is something completely underrated. 99% of Buffett's wealth came after the age of 50.
Wow.
And he's been investing since like 12 or something like this. So he's been investing for like 80 years or so. So think about it like that. It's like he has been in the game for so long. So while us, for example, in the pursuit of some mythical doubling of our input, we burn ourselves in the process in year 1 or 2, and then you might scratch it all together and say like, I cannot live like this. And the answer is yes, you cannot live like that. But the better question, whenever you're setting up the journey for you, is like, what is the game? Or what are the rules? What does this need to look like for me to be able to do it for a decade and not...
Yes.
It's the same. It's like football, let's say. This one I know a little bit. European football, which you call soccer. Football, yeah. So soccer for our American friends. When you think about somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo, who has the most goals in football history, sure, but he's 40 plus. He has been at the highest level of athleticism for 2 decades straight, right? Right. Being a top performer longevity. And when you see what he does, he prioritizes rest, recovery. Otherwise, like when you have other people in sport that you tear a muscle and then 2 years you're out on the bench, and then you play for another 2 years, another 3 years on the bench. What? So the question, like for example, for me, hustling and working more is counterproductive because this is not the game that you want to win.
But you have to get to that level, first. Like you have to be able to throw the spaghetti at the wall and work on anything you can work on. And then once you've got some idea of what works, then you can start not being counterproductive, start being a lot more productive, actually productive.
100%. So like I said, I think you can do it also without a lot of the hustling, because you can ask from the beginning. It's like, what is the type of game that I can play for a decade plus?
Yes.
What does this need to look like that I can play it for a decade plus?
I love that. Wow.
Most of the people don't start with this. Nobody starts with this question because we don't know, right? I also didn't start with this question. This is after the fact. I kind of, this is the interesting thing. That's why I said, like, if you have been hustling like a maniac for the past 1, 2, 3 years, don't let that go in vain.
Yeah.
You already did a lot of things, so you can separate the results from the noise. the signal from the noise,
Mhm.
trying to figure out those things. And once you figure them out, you have your set of things, then you're like, okay, so now I know these things, but like 40% of these I freaking still hate. They are important. I can clearly see now that they lead to results, but they are also kind of the ones that drain me the most.
Yeah. Now you can delegate. Yeah.
And now you have a choice, right? And then you're like, if I delegate this, or at least one of this, can it help me play the game better? Because look, when I did my year where I worked the entire year, I got to my result. I made the most money till that point. That year, I made the most amount of money that I have ever made till that point. But at the end of it, I also kind of destroyed a little bit my eyesight. I had to go to an eye doctor. My eyesight dropped by 0.5, not a major thing, but I had perfect 20/20 vision. And after a year of working nights and days and
staring at a screen,
I kind of destroyed my health in the process.
Mm.
So I was faced with a dilemma. And the dilemma was like, I got to where I wanted to be, so I made the money that I wanted. I actually exceeded my my goal for that year, but I was like, but this is not a life. I destroyed my eyesight in the process. I had not, I haven't spent time with close friends or family. I literally went gung-ho on that. And then I was like, okay, so let's say I have the same goal next year to generate the same amount of money. But I was like, dude, this is not, I cannot sustain this in this way. So that was the breaking, a moment of truth. Let's call it like this. This is the moment of truth. As I'm like, I cannot, this is not a game that I can play for a decade.
Yes.
Next year might be my last year.
Yeah. Wow.
So here's another framework that helps. Doing work for a reason, for a season, or for life. So mastery and all of these other things that I talk about that clients come easy to me now and whatever come from the for life mindset.
Attitude.
Yeah. And by the way, when I say life, I mean it metaphorically. I mean like the longest possible amount of time that you can fathom, right? While season can be literally this 3 months, 6 months, a year. So can I grind this out knowing that once I hit this result, I scratch it all together, remove, I don't do it anymore. And then I'm like, okay, then I don't need to know how to do it better. Because I know for a fact that I'll do it for a season. Like this is what I'm going to show up for. I do it and then I move on from it. The lifetime one is where all of these things become easier because you've been in the game, you understand the game more, you see all of the variations, etc., etc. So if you want to play that game, then you need to figure out the game in which you can stay for the longest time. So all of a sudden, this hustle and whatever is not a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
It cannot be because you cannot sustain it.
Yep. So it's sustainability, longevity. And I also heard generating energy. And that's one of the high performance habits that we talk a lot about in high performance. And it's all about how can you generate energy throughout your day? How can you continuously generate, take that little 20 minutes to really sit down and pause and eat your lunch and be in a parasympathetic state instead of just rushing through, I need to get back to work. What if you could just pause and reflect and not just be continuously working so hard, but then just pause and then get back to it? How can you set things throughout your day that might generate energy so that you can do the hard things, and generating, I love that idea. And it's like, that's why I think it's so important to have, that vision, to have that life vision of like, where do I want to be that far out, where do I want to be 10 years from now or 5 years from now? Because it allows us to look at our goals and what we're going after in a longer time frame and a longer time horizon, and going, I'm not just going to try to do this and see what happens. This is what I'm doing. It's this level of commitment. Like my life vision that we've created through, Lifebook is like, I wrote that 4 or 5 years ago, and like, that's what I'm doing. Like there's no, kind of going off of it. I edit it, I update it, but it's like, that gives me this sort of target of where I'm headed. It doesn't matter how long it takes really, because I know that's what I truly want, you know? And so like really setting that vision is so important to just help us stretch our time frame, help us stretch our mind to look at the thing we're going after differently. And I love that idea of like staying in the game. Like staying in
Completely
the game
underrated.
is the productivity hack. Like choose something. And this is where I think, you know, counterintuitively that like having a level of passion and in what you're doing, you know, really allows you to be, you know, stay in the game for a long time. If you're doing something that you absolutely hate, you know, then all right, you're just not going to have that sustainability. You know what I mean? But it's like if you have that some type of passion about where you're doing, or maybe it's like passion in the future of like, this is where I'm going, you know, this is where I want to be. I think that passion, it definitely fuels me. Like I wake up and I'm like, I love to coach. I love to help people reach their potential. You know, I love to do this podcast. I love to do these things, you know, and maybe just people operate differently, but there's certainly things I have to do that, you know, I don't necessarily want to do. And thank goodness I had like a sales background too, where I had to face very uncomfortable situations all the time. And that was the most amount of personal growth I ever had. And so if I look back at my life too, it's kind of like a mix of, I definitely have gone after things that I'm very excited about, like what I really want to do and have had a passion, but it's also when I've got the best results. You know, I thought about this like months ago, just really reflecting like, okay, how do I get the best results? I remember having a coach in baseball, Alex, that after college, that he was hardcore. It was, you know, we were hit 5 days a week. And every time I would go in there, he'd be like, yeah, like he was a major league baseball player. And he would be like, yeah, like that sucks. Like you need to get better here. Like you need to get better there. Like you need to be able to hit 100 miles an hour off the, you know, off the pitching machine. Like I was like, man, I can never like please this guy. I'm never good enough. I feel like I'm progressing so much. But if I look at what happened after that, I had the best season of my life. Because I faced some of those hard things. You know, in the process, like baseball was my passion, but I had to do the hard things at the same time to get a result of hitting almost 400 in my first year of professional ball. And so that's a great lesson. I think about solar too, you know, because I was in solar sales. I think about, yeah, I had to really go out and sell solar panels. And, you know, that gave me the most amount of personal development I could ever imagine. The best communication skills, like the ability to read emotions, phrase things in a different way. So it's like that hard work or that facing that, you know, really taught me so many things that actually got me the results. So it's interesting to look back at that. And I love the idea of like, okay, if you're going to be great at something, somebody wants to be a high performer, look at this idea of like longevity. Like, can you stay in the game? Is this something you want to stay in the game for 10 years? If so, then maybe it is worth the time and the effort and the sacrifice to get there. Because you're going to do something anyway. You know what I mean?
Like I said, it's like I said, I believe that this one is one of the fundamental irreducible principles that people just glance over. It's completely underrated. But for me, this longevity or staying in the game is then I can talk about hours only about this one because it's such a powerful concept. Look, if I'm trying to compete with you on baseball, trying to beat you in the next month, you will crush me because there's too much happening. Like there's too much competition on the short term. There are a lot of people that are by default better than me, etc., etc. But if I think about beating you in the next 10 years, and my goal is 10 years down the line, I know that I am in rare air. Nobody thinks a decade down the line. Everybody thinks about the next month. But once I get there, if I think about in a decade or how do I stay longer in the game, most likely I will become one of the absolute greats.
Yeah.
But you see, the mindset from the beginning was staying in the game. And I loved a lot of the things that you said. they got me thinking. There's another thing that because I don't want to discard passion. Okay, so I'm not discarding it. It's just I'm saying that it doesn't entirely apply to me as how I think about it. I'm not discarding it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually believe that results lead to passion more than passion leads to results. So once you become very good, because like my passion was never to create curriculums for personal development courses. I've never thought of that in my entire life as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not like when I was in the university or after, I was like, you know what will make me truly happy? Creating curriculums. Dude, no, never. Now, it just happened that in the last decade, when I started this, the personal development industry was on a rise consistently throughout the years. I just happened to be there, and I just happened to stay in the game to get to a point where I became really, really good. And then the money started coming in, and I was like, I love the money because I can get to live in a penthouse, and I can get to take my family out to vacations, and I get to build stuff and buy art, and I get to do a lot of the things that I love. But you see, like, it was never. So now I kind of have a little bit of passion about personal development, you know?
So what is really your passion then? Is it the art? Is it the is it the ability to buy whatever you want, the freedom?
Yeah, so freedom is one of my values, etc. What I wanted to say is that I started liking the thing because I can do all of the things that I truly desire. My passion is like, you know, I like carpentry. I used to love this as a kid. I love this as an older man now. So that is passion. I could have never built money out of it as in like solid income, but I love it. It gives me a lot of positive positive feelings. I love roofing, for example. It's something that I used to do as a kid. But roofing as a long-term job, as
you say roofing?
Roofing, yeah. I used to build roofs.
Yeah.
Roofing as a long-term job, if I had to do it physically, it will just destroy me physically. When the sun and all of these type of things. So I have a lot of quote-unquote passions, things that I really liked or brought energy to my life. I could have never made the type of living that I'm making out of curriculums, but I got interested in it. I put more effort into it because it gave me a lot of the other results, right? So to this day, I do believe that results lead to passion more than passion leads to result. The other thing, I made a note here just so I don't forget it, is that in the concept of productivity, I also saw another element. I believe that many times the worst thing you can do to a person is to give them productivity advice. Like the absolute worst. Because I need to understand, first of all, like, I get asked also a lot. It's like, what are your productivity hacks or whatever? I also don't like the idea of hack, but
hacks.
I do have
They're
a
more
lot
trendy,
of,
right?
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting. Okay. So I do have a lot of things that made me more productive as a person. But the thing is like this, if you apply productivity techniques without discerning what are the effective things, what you're giving this person is the ability to do more of the bad things, which is most likely going to accelerate the burnout rather than helping them. So for me, when I talk with a person, I always try to understand, I was like, why exactly do you want to learn these productivity techniques?
Yes.
And before learning them, let's try to understand, like, where are you now? Well, I'm working 40 hours a week and 40 hours, like 80 hours a week, and I'm trying to become more productive. I'm like, no, that's the least thing you want to do.
Okay. Where are you at? Yeah.
Yeah, because look, often it's a very counterintuitive productivity strategy. So this is a counterintuitive productivity strategy. What leads to better productivity, and this is what people absolutely hate hearing: sleep, rest, exercise, 3 days. Do you have 3 days to simply be and wonder?
Yes.
You tell this to a person who's gone full on volume.
Yeah.
And they will hate you. They will look at you like you're some kind of horrendous human being that has cursed their entire existence. You know? And I'm like, dude, I have been there. I know that the thing is, what you don't see when you're in the grind is that your actual productivity, which I define as output per unit of input, because that is productivity, output per unit of input.
Okay, that's great. Output per unit of input is your definition.
Yeah, that's so. If I work an hour and I make X amount of dollars, and you work 10 hours and you make half as me, who is more productive? You that managed to work 10 hours, or me that managed to make more with less? My argument would be that it's me in that case. I managed to improve my output-input ratio. And that's productivity. How much can you get per unit of input? Right? Very hard. It took me a long time to understand that, because otherwise you start seeing the hard work as the badge of honor. Like I said, that's why I gave the story with I worked every single day. Most people hear it and they're like, "Oh my God, it can be done. This guy is an absolute beast. It can work every day." But I tell that story always as to say, I did it wrong. This is not like
this was
it
a
can
mistake.
be done. Yeah, because I didn't know, right? I didn't know better. But I learned from that experience. Like I said, I don't have to destroy myself in the process, etc. But what I've also seen with time, and I do apply it to this day, is that I might need to get something done, but today. But if it's not urgent in terms of I still have till the end of the week to perform the task, and I feel tired now, I actually stop. Because I know via a lot of reflection in the past that it takes me, let's say, this many hours to deliver this type of result. It takes me 3 hours to deliver this result. What I have seen is that consistently, if I am tired, if I am blurry, my mind is not here, I can still plow through it, but it will take me 6 to 8 hours to deliver the same type of result. So then I was like, okay, this is not going to lead to anything. It leads to more burnout. So let's stop, because I can do it tomorrow when I'm fresh and I know that I'll do it in 3 hours. So that is the thing. Why we need to stop sometimes, because otherwise you just think like more. Yeah. I'm like, yes, but what's your unit of output? What's your output per unit of input? Because if you're working 80 hours and you're generating what I can generate in 10 hours, I'm like, it's
you're more productive.
Right. So for me, that was like such a wake-up call, because I was the guy that was working this is the emotional game here. When I say you shouldn't see it as a badge of honor, I'm talking to myself. I saw it as a badge of honor because I knew it was like, dude, nobody can outwork me. I'm like, sure, great, but what's the output? So what's the, you see, we need to think about incentives. So if you incentivize just hard work, as in more time spent, what you end up getting is more time spent. So that's why I said, like, stop and think about the game in a different way. Can I obtain the same thing with half the work? And you'll not have the answer. Okay, you'll not have the answer, but it is a better question. That's all that's my entire argument here. You might not have the answer, but it's a better question, because, like I said, it's not just adding more things, because you'll get to burnout, or what I've seen is, like, because I've not faced that per se, but I can talk about the fact that I have seen that some tasks that I know for a fact how long they take, when I am tired or blurry, or I haven't slept well, etc., they take 3 to 4 times more time.
Right.
So, of course, I can plow through it and get it done, but I'm like, but why would I spend 4 times more for something that I know I can do it in 4 times less?
100%.
So the ultimate productivity hack, that people don't want to hear is sleep, rest, exercise, 3 days. So that's that is, you have to have this one, because this is actually what's going to help you stay in the game for longer. And once you have these basics, then you can apply a lot of more strategies that are good, like time blocking, the Pareto distribution. These are just the internet is flooded with a lot of these, and they're good. I'm just saying they don't come before the fact of
Principles.
prioritizing
Yeah.
the long term and everything. They come after the fact.
Ah,
People position them before, and
Yeah.
it leads to the burnout situation.
yeah. Wow. That is super valuable for anybody, no matter what level you're at, going after your goals, building your business, building your life is, and I actually really love that. I know there's a lot of people that sounds like, oh, that's like the same thing that we all know already. It's like sleep, exercise, movement, free days, like days off. But it's like, I love that answer, because that's like the thing where it allows you that space. And I actually help people do that. Like, how is your sleep quality? Are you getting those, 7 to 9 hours a night? And those things like allow you, because my like philosophy of life is I want to be the most, successful person I can be, but in my career field, but it's always been for me, like loving my life. I want to love my life. Like I want to be fulfilled in the journey. I want to love the ride, and that creating that space, enjoying the small things of life, like sleep, eating well, like enjoying those smaller things is like, it really creates fulfillment in your life. Like, oh, I can just breathe and be a human being and just experience. And so for me, it's like, like grinding yourself or just having a level of success. It's like, what if we could create a new version of success, that is not just, about money and respect. It's like also like health, also fulfillment. Are you, I like fulfillment over like happiness, because happiness is fleeting, or fulfillment is like something that, is over the long term, that you're proud of, what you've done. But it's like, yeah, like let's create a new version of what successful is. And everybody's got their own definition. I would encourage you guys out there to think about, what is your definition of success? But for me, it's like fulfillment, being successful in my career, contributing at a high level from this place, this valuable place that I'm passionate about. Also generational impact. What is my life, my career doing to make the next generation's life way better than mine? That's a big part. And then the higher consciousness part, the spirituality part. Like, what am I doing to raise my consciousness, to understand what's happening, to connect to a higher power? Because for me, like the highest level of what we're doing here, like the peak human experience is a state of being. It's not career and money. That's part of it. But the peak of human experience is, this state of being of understanding what's happening here, of really understanding who you are. It's being fulfilled in the moment, being present, being the observer, this more spiritual side of what's happening here. It's really a state of being. It's not just the material side or the respect. That's here. I always talk about like the top of the mountain. The top of the mountain for me, like when I went to India, was I learned about enlightenment. For the first time, it was like, oh my God, like, wow, okay, I see like what my purpose is here. And I was like, yeah, the top of the mountain, like everybody thinks it's career and finances. Even still, even with all this personal development, even still, so many people still think subconsciously that's what it is. But it's like, no, there's something higher than that. I love mountains. There's a peak that's higher than that, man. There's another peak that's up there. Like, wake up. Like, there's something greater. It's loving your life. It's being connected to a higher power, being connected to who you are. And that's like, that state of being is really the highest thing we can do as a human being. And so it's like, how can we reframe what successful is to us? And those 4 pillars are really what makes my full potential life successful. Love that.
Mm-hmm. I resonate with your view also on happiness.
Yeah.
We actually in the West got this idea of happiness from Aristotle. It is translated as happiness is the end all and be all of life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the word does not mean happiness. So the word that Aristotle used was eudaimonia, which means flourishing. So flourishing is the end all be all of life. So it's because what you just said about happiness, I know it's enshrined in the U.S. Constitution, the pursuit of happiness, right? So that's I think that's why it's so such a pervasive
really
idea.
Yeah.
But happiness for me, it's a fleeting emotional state.
Yeah.
And it also inclines towards the positive. Nothing bad with that, but so basically, if I'm not feeling happiness, then something's wrong. Flourishing, on the other hand, implies this, because when you had your year, we explained earlier with your coach, it was not happiness when you found out that you suck. It is not happiness when you said, like, man, I cannot make this guy like what I'm doing. I'm like, But
the baseball coach,
yes, but when you reached the year where the end of the year where you said, I had the best year, that feeling is a feeling of flourishing.
Yes.
You can define the happiness, but I would define it as a feeling of flourishing. It actually encapsulates that you actually went through some form of suffering, some form of pain, some form of flourishing. For me, encapsulates also the fact that it doesn't have to be only positive emotions all the way. It's not sustainable. And also, it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that.
There is no... I think that the high-level athletes and people in sports actually manage to rewire their brain circuitry in a way that pain feels pleasurable to them. But
it does.
but you still feel the pain. As in, the pain is not it doesn't disappear. You're just like, oh, I feel like the muscles are growing, my ability is growing. So you kind of tricked your mind into seeing that pain is a good thing. But you see, like happiness, if you put it against that, you'll be like, well, why the hell would I want to feel pain? As in, like, well, muscle doesn't grow without stress.
Yes.
You cannot have personal development without facing the fact that you might not be good at what you do. Therefore, you need to grow. The facing of the fact is painful. When we do that hard year of work and the hustling, when I said that we need to become aware of what you're doing, that awareness is painful because your immediate instinct is like, I've done so many things that were not good. So you are constantly faced with these type of emotions. But what I'm saying is, like, these type of emotions should not lead to beating yourself up.
Yeah.
You can see them as like they are necessary for my growth trajectory.
100% necessary. For me, it's like I went through that. I mean, it was 8 years ago when I stopped playing baseball, but it's like I did go through so much sacrifice and so much pain. I'm just like shocked that it like for some reason took me so long to see some of the sides that I was ignoring. Like, took me so long to be like, okay, I can't just, like, there's something that worked for me, which was always focusing on my desire, on always focusing on where I wanted to go, like continuously keeping my mind there, like keeping my eye on the prize, so to speak, and constantly training my mind to be positive, because it's easy to go, like I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Through baseball, through sports, it really was a training to be positive. And because like my journey was, that's how I really reached, where my mind was, right? The actions, are the actions, but my mind was always like laser focused. Like, you can't stop me from getting to that determination, but that positivity. I would always generate positivity in my mind. I want to feel that. Yeah, I visualize that. I was a big visualizer before the game. I would sit there and I would really visualize myself hitting the ball in the gap, running around the bases every game. And it worked. Once I started doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, there's something to focusing on what I want. And so for me, for so long, Alex, like, it's worked so well to just, obviously I'm taking the action, doing the things on the ground, but for me to keep my mind like, always staying positive, it worked. But then I get to a new level and it's like, I can't just focus on the positive anymore. I have to really, really face the negative. I have to really, really face what I suck at and be like, okay, all right, you know what? It's not getting the results that are my huge goals. I'm not even, close to these massive goals, or because I'm entering like a new chapter, a new level. And that's where you have to really grow. Like this, the same level of thinking doesn't get you, right? What Einstein's quote doesn't get you to that next level, whatever the exact quote is. So for me, it's like, it surprised me that I'm like I've had a lot of pain, but for some reason, there was something back here that I've just been avoiding for so long. And now that I'm like, okay, let me just look at it. Now I can really grow significantly. I'm just shocked that it took so long to really, really look at my pain or the things that I might not be doing so well, or the things, and I guess it's because of my philosophy that worked, but just shocked that it can sometimes take us longer than we expect to really, really face that pain, face that insecurity even.
That's also relative, by the way. It's because when you say it took so long, typically a sentence like this implies that you either created an idea in your head that ideally I should have gotten it in 5 minutes. Therefore, you are falling victim that you didn't, or you have a model of somebody in your head that did it faster than you. So this speed, like I said with the education at the beginning of our conversation with the target level, speed is very relative. It's relative to the target level, is relative to
the skill.
To the skill that you already have. So to the pre-existing things that you have, it's relative to exactly the skill that you are trying to achieve. So everything. So this, I think it's a mental trap. When I say I could have done it faster, and you might end up in the beating yourself up situation.
Yeah.
But for example, you can transform it differently, as in like, hey, this is a lesson that it took me a long time to understand.
Yeah.
Like what I said with my year of work and etc. I put a lot of effort, and it took me so much time and effort and energy and all of these things to understand this simple idea.
Yeah.
You can take this, and this can make you a better coach, because you can see your behavior in somebody else. And because you have been through the trial by fire, you understand exactly the mindset. Like how I was explaining when I said that hard work is a badge of honor. It's because I believed it. That was my mental model. That was what that was my mental conversation with myself. So when I see it in others, I'm like, it's just a projection. I've seen it in me. That's why I can talk about it.
Right.
So these type of things can help in the realm of coaching.
Yeah.
It's the same what you explained with your coach earlier, when they're like, no, do this. Why? Because most likely he also spent 10 years grappling with the idea, oh man, if I only figured it out that I had to shoot it like this.
No, you're exactly right. He was in the major leagues, up and down major leagues, AAA, because there's levels, and for like 10 years. And then he actually retired. That's so funny that this is coming up. He actually retired, and then somebody taught him a different, for so long in baseball, it's been, the traditional model to swing, because he was a hitter, was to swing down at the ball. The whole idea. So you think about the physics of how baseball works. There's a guy that's, on a mound, and he's, I can't remember the exact inches, but 9 to 17 inches, above the hitter traditionally, right? And he's 60 feet away, and he's also throwing from up here, right? So the ball is going down like this, 9 to 10 degree angle. And you are the hitter here, standing here, and you have a round ball and a round bat that you're trying to hit, in 25% of the earth, with 9 guys trying to get you out, right? So there's 9 guys against you, including the guy who's catching the ball. He's trying to call the right pitch so that it's hard to hit, right? But for so long, baseball had talked about like swinging down at the ball, like using the bat to swing down like this. And that was always the traditional thought. So he spent so much of his life swinging down, swinging down, swinging down, swinging down. But once he realized a different technique, he ended up like retiring because he thought it was over. Somebody taught him how to get on plane. He's this big guy, huge guy. He's like 6'4", 220, 250 pounds, and just a big, strong guy. And once he tweaked the angle to meet, let's say this, this is the ball over here coming at this angle towards him. Once he tweaked it so his bat was at this angle, and he started swinging slightly, not up, but slightly up where he was meeting the ball, he had a lot more contact and a lot more power. And he took a few swings when somebody taught him this, and he hit like flips, just like a light toss. Normally it's like a pitcher, but it's just a light toss for practice. He was practicing on the field, and he swung slightly up, and he hit the ball in like a major league stadium, and it hit the scoreboard. And he was like, "Are you kidding me? 10 years of my life I've been dedicated and told, swing down, swing down, swing down, swing down." That was the old model. But what's actually happening with those people is that was just a mental side. It helped them not do this and swing up. So it was just the mental side. What was actually happening was the guys that thought they were swinging down, they were actually getting right on plane with their bat and meeting the ball. So they were making more contact, hitting the ball more, and hitting it further. So he learned this whole, idea 10 years later, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I would have known this so long ago." So it's funny you bring that up. And then that's what he was teaching me, because I was completely redoing my swing. And so that was the pain that he went through, to be able to give that to me so that I didn't have to go through that. So that's so funny you bring that up.
100%. So here's the interesting thing here. Conviction in something leads to speed. So if I don't have mental friction about endless possibilities, yada, yada, I know what's the path. There's no mental friction. It leads to speed. It leads me to focus on the fundamental principle, and I get more repetition of the fundamental principle.
Conviction leads to speed.
The conviction that you have, the clarity of something. But look, your coach, I mean, I'm just thinking, right, here. But the point is that how I see it is like that conviction most likely would have never happened without the 10 years prior to him coming up with that, because he has 10 years of trying different styles, being in the major leagues, minor leagues, wherever he went.
Yeah.
He has a lot of repetitions, understands the game. So when was the moment he was ripe to get an idea that he was like, I have tried everything else. I know how they work. I know the results.
Right.
This one is better.
Yeah.
You, for example, let's say if at the beginning of the game, anything you put in front of you, it's just a new technique. You don't know. So that you might take for granted. You'll be like, yeah, okay, I swing like this. But I'm like, no, it took this guy 10 years of hard work to figure out something that now he's handing to you.
Yeah, right.
and through his conviction, I'm like, Eric, no, you're not. Don't focus on that. Let's focus on this one. Get this one right. But it doesn't feel natural because of the angle of the. No. We're focusing on this.
Just listen to the master.
Yes, because this is also why I see like the value of mentors or coaches.
Yeah.
Is if they've done the journey, they have seen a lot of possibilities, and what they are doing now, they cannot play for you or hand you something, but they can reduce a lot of the mental friction that no matter who you are, you will face when you're like, but everybody has this, like, is this the right path, or is that the right path, or is this the right path?
Yeah.
Even if I tell you what's the right path, because I've tried it, it's not like you're going to achieve it immediately.
Right.
But indirectly, I have shortened. It might take you 2 years
Right.
to become good at this swing,
Mm-hmm.
while it took me 10.
Right.
So this is the value of coaching. This is the value of mentors. This is the value
Exactly.
of people who have done the thing that we are trying to do.
Yep.
It's not in the instant obtaining of the skill. It is actually in the shortening of the duration
Right.
that it takes us to achieve the same thing. This is why, for example, I don't take ideas for granted if they have life behind them. And what I mean by this is like when I read my life has been improved tremendously through the power of books.
Yeah.
Books.
How many books have you read?
Don't know, man. I average about 60 to 80 a year, so probably 1,000 plus,
Wow.
something like that. But again, this is not a badge of honor, because it's not like the amount of books that you read, but what are the main
What are
ideas
you getting from it? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So again, when I am cautious when somebody says that they read 80 or 100 books per year. That's great, because I think like you're exposed to a lot of ideas. That's
Yeah.
great. Volume. Okay.
Yeah.
Volume, great.
Yeah.
But then effectiveness, as in like, but do you actually also extract something from that?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
it's just the
And then implementation after that.
Otherwise, you will not know when something works
Yeah.
or doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So my life has become better, tremendously better, because I have taken ideas from people that they spent decades distilling. So that's why I am big on truth, as in
Yeah.
like, this person has a track record of truth, because then I can believe what they're saying. Track record, again, like, that's why I really appreciated in the US, for example, somebody like Charlie Munger, because he died at the age of 99 while being respected in his field, and he has a track record of success and yada yada.
Mhm.
So throughout his life, he didn't do a immoral thing or something of this nature. So I'm like, okay, this person, trustworthy. So let's see what I can pick from his life experience, right? And one idea that I took from him, just as an example, is inversion. Always invert. It's so when you're faced with a dilemma, most often you cannot figure out the path forward. How do I build the best life possible? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, 10,000 different opportunities, millions of paths. The brain just freezes in contact with so many possibilities. So when you don't have the answer, you go backwards. So you'll be like, okay, what creates a shitty life? What are the things what are the things that are guaranteed that I will live a miserable life? And then you write them down and be like, okay, if I constantly fight with my partner, is it a good life or not? Anyway, you get the point. It's like inversion, and then you start doing, you simply avoid or reduce doing those behaviors. So here's how I applied it to finances. Let's say, how do you become the best in finances? Very tricky question. Paths, models, invest, the all-weather portfolio. Yeah. There are a lot of things. I was like, what is almost guaranteed that will make you lose? Okay? And try to avoid those. So try to avoid the most common mistakes.
Yeah.
Like panicky type of thing, buying and selling all the time based on emotional impulses rather than intrinsic value. As an example. So, but you get the idea. So I don't want to continue the thing. But you see, like, inversion is something that helps you with a lot of dilemmas when you have multiple paths. So I took that idea from Munger. He's not the only one who said it. Okay. But because I trusted the man as an individual and his career track record, then it makes me believe that what he was saying is not false, or trying to boost, or trying to get the social points or ego points. Oh, it's what you learn. So you see, like, I do believe in the power of coaches or mentors that have done the path, that have walked the path that we are on. And I do not take also lightly an idea like that it took me like 5 minutes to grasp after a Munger shared it. I was like, oh, inversion. Okay, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, it took this guy decades
Yeah.
of practicing, putting into practice that idea, because that's why he came up with, that's why he mentioned it at one point. It's not like he only picked one idea in his entire life and then he ran with it. It's trial and true. So
Right.
with your coach, I believe it's the same thing. It is because he spent 10 years of doing this, that,
Right.
that, he was able to distill an idea for you and put it in front of you, but it's a life behind that idea.
Yeah.
So this is also something that we can do
see.
for others. Like I said, if anybody takes something from my story, it's like that. It's like my year of grinding and whatever got me to the conclusion that hustling is not a badge of honor. You can do it
Right.
better.
Right.
So you can skip a few years of the struggle if you somehow manage to internalize that idea and to see that there is a different way. You might not know it yet, but there is a better way. There is always a different way.
So is that how you would distill down your message for today, or is there anything else you'd like to distill down?
So I think that the distillation of everything I said will boil down with how I started, which is hard work with the wrong philosophy will lead to burnout. So you need to understand. So that means that it's not that hard work is bad. It's necessary. The repetitions are necessary.
Right.
The right philosophy is also understanding the resources, as in like you are always in a match of trade-offs.
Yeah.
And you're always allocating limited resources to unlimited problems. So that is part of the philosophy. You need to understand that. You need to understand that this allocation of resources is the first thing. Then you need to understand the input-output ratio.
Yep.
So what is the
ratio.
unit? How much am I getting? What's the unit of output I'm getting per unit of input? And how to make them a less amount of input, maximum amount of output. That is part of what I say here, let's call it quote unquote right philosophy. So
your right philosophy. Fantastic. Wow. Well, for anybody out there listening, I hope you got, you can really write some of those things down and really start to implement them and start to figure out what principles you want to take and how this, impacts your life and how you can move forward towards your goals. And Alex, I want to ask you, man, there's always the question that I ask everybody at the end of the podcast. If you were to fast forward to the end of your life and you were to know that kind of at that moment where you're about to pass away, whether you're on your deathbed or whether you're, an AI bot in a body and, you're like 200 years old and you're like, okay, I'm just going to go now. Whatever's happening at that time, and you're like, you want to go away with peace. You want to leave like with peace, that you lived the life you wanted to live, or you lived by a certain philosophy, or you just went after the goals you wanted to go after. What would be, 2 to 3 things that you could say, you know what? It's okay for me to go now in peace. It's okay for me to go. I did these 2 or 3 things in my lifetime. What would that be for you?
It makes me think about the last few words from my actual life vision, because it is exactly the end of my life vision is about how I want to feel at the end of my life. And I basically say something that ultimately I became the man I needed most in my darkest days. Embodied actions became my legacy. And I also helped others in the world, helped others see the world and our place in it more clearly. My last line is actually, on my last day on earth, if it will ever come, I know I'll be able to say with an open heart and a clear conscience, I rose above my limitations and I truly live.
Whoa. Wow. I love that. Is there anything else you would like to tell the audience or leave with the audience?
You are enough, and start building your greatest skill set, start layering on top of this understanding and become inevitable.
I love it. Thank you so much, man. Alex, this has been awesome, enlightening for me, enlightening I know is going to be for a lot of people in productivity, in burnout, just bringing a lot of awareness around principles, around, discernment, pausing, reflecting, output per unit of input, productivity, inversion, some awesome stuff here, effectiveness versus efficiency. So a lot of things people can really dig in on and help them actually move forward. And like you said, see more clearly. So, and Alex, yeah, I've always, I've known you for, 5 years now through the online community, and also met in person in Europe a few times, or once or twice. Yeah. But, at Mind Value. And I appreciate your truth, man. I appreciate that you say exactly as you think and as you feel. And it comes from life experience and a lot of work and a lot of doing the work. And I really do appreciate that. I also appreciate the rebellious attitude of like really kind of thinking for yourself and really kind of bringing your own uniqueness to the world, because even I love like questioning my own thoughts, even around passion or around these other things. So how can I grow? How can I learn? So I really appreciate some of that. A lot of the times where we've come on calls or, we've been a part of the Lifebook community, and it's challenged a lot of my own beliefs for me to grow, man. So I genuinely mean that. And I really appreciate you, bringing that to my life. So thanks a lot, man.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right. I think we'll stop it there. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you soon. Peace.
Do not settle for a life that does not belong to you. Uncover and activate your fullest potential in this lifetime. Live your greatest life experience.
This is the Full Potential Living Podcast.